Hello, I'm Shulker and welcome back to the top 10 video. Today we're going to talk about the biggest changes they made to mobs over Minecraft's history. Because if you don't know, every single update, as well as adding brand new features and sometimes mobs, they also make changes to existing features and sometimes to existing mobs. These changes are usually fairly small, like being able to light a creeper on fire or being able to have a chicken fall slowly, but sometimes they're pretty big and kind of change the identity of that mob. And I figured with today's video, why not go over the 10 biggest changes they made over Minecraft's history? Hopefully you all do enjoy it. Like the video if you do, because it helps out the channel and lets know you do like seeing big changes they made to Minecraft mobs. Again, these kind of affected the identity of those mobs in lots of cases, or at least they're kind of big deals, because like the 10th one here, which is to do with the creeper, this is one of the biggest deals in the game because it's one of the rarest events you'll ever stumble across if it ever happens. I found this once in survival in my like 5 years of playing, and you've probably never found it yourself, or maybe you found it once too, because it is the charged creeper. So the charged creeper came out with beta 1.5 when lightning came into the game, and it's something that again most people don't even know about. Like maybe if you're a hardcore Minecraft player, you probably do, but a lot of people have never even heard of these things or even seen one, because it is a creeper which is infused with the power of lightning. So what exactly does this mean? It means that its explosion has double the radius, double the damage, and it's just an all-round more deadly thing. So yeah, if you don't know the difference between those blasts, it looks a little bit like this. As you can see, pretty big deal when you look at the difference between a charged creeper and a regular creeper, but as well as just being a really big difference in the size of the explosion, the damage, and just being a more terrifying mob, it also has the really cool effect of if you get a charged creeper to blow up another mob, that mob will then drop its head. So there is a very, very rare way, getting one of these, then getting this to kill another mob, that allows you to get a bunch of items which are otherwise creative exclusive in survival, such as the zombie head, the the skeleton head, etc., which I think is just a really cool addition to the game. And although that stuff came later, the charged creeper is responsible for it, and that is why this charged creeper addition, to the game was one of the biggest. It's only number 10 on the list because most people will never find it, but it is one of the biggest in my opinion. So what is number 9? Number 9 is the changes they made to the Shulker. So the Shulker, when it first existed in Minecraft, it really didn't have much for use. It just, and that's how it is on the console version right now. It's just something you can kill if you want to. It teleports around, it fires stuff at you. A little bit weird, right? But the thing about the, the change they made to 1.11 is they made it actually have a drop, and they made this drop have a use. So just a single change to a single drop of a single mob really changed the game quite a bit, because now you have to go to the end cities to find these Shulkers to get Shulker chests, a very, very interesting and cool item, and that is why it's number 9 on the list, because again, just by changing a single drop of a single mob, they actually made it a more interesting mob in general, and I think it really made the Shulkers something people care about as opposed to something people just roll their eyes at, which is a cool little change if you ask me. So the 8th biggest change they made to a mob in Minecraft is probably the removal of the killer bunny. So the killer bunny is another like tiny variant of a mob that most people would never see, but it was common enough, 1 in 1,000 spawned rabbits, so you probably would have run across like 5 or 6 by now if you play a fair amount of Minecraft. Basically there was a 1 in 1,000 chance of the killer bunny spawning instead of a regular bunny, which would just go carnivorous and try and attack you. So what was the logic behind this thing being removed? I feel like it's such a big deal because they removed this because a lot of players, who had no idea about Minecraft, they're just loading up Minecraft for the first time, would be destroyed by a rabbit, and it really sets the wrong tone for the game. My immediate response to this is like, really, do we need to tone down the game just for people who don't understand it? But I really feel like it does go against the opposite kind of goal of Minecraft of like, here's a fun sandbox to explore if you just have random rabbits that will sometimes kill people if they're new to the game. Like, when you first play Minecraft, it's a very serene, calm experience, and having, again, just random killer bunnies, I can see why they would be removed, but it really changed the identity of, the mob, and I feel like it has a big effect in Minecraft in general, because it really is, like a part of what they're kind of going for with the rest of the game. So yeah, that is the 8th biggest change to a mob. I feel like the 7th biggest one is probably to do with the pig. So the pig is, again, it's a mob that's existed since very, very early on in Minecraft. However, when it first existed, it had a flat face, and it had this weird cross-eyed expression. So again, when it seems like such a small change, they just changed the texture of a pig, which is something they did, from then to now. However, this, one single change to just make it less cross-eyed, really kind of changes the look of the pig in general. So again, you might say like, how does that even really make sense, Toycat? But if you think about how Minecraft exists as a game right now, the mobs, they're not realistic, but they're also not, playfully dull. Whereas the cross-eyed pig, I feel like was this playful little mob that kind of changes the goal of Minecraft, I guess the theme of Minecraft, from being this giant semi-realistic game that just happens to be made out of blocks, to being this just very kooky, wacky game. And maybe that would have made it better in some ways, but I feel like it really does affect the identity of Minecraft having the pig look like that, and that's why, in my opinion, it is the 7th biggest change they've made to a mob. They changed the theme of not only a mob, but indirectly the rest of the game, which is fascinating for a single mob change to a single mob texture, right? So next up we have here the addition of the cow running away from you, which is number 6, which actually happened with the full release of the game, because before then, when you attacked a cow, it would just kind of stand there and do nothing. And you might think, how is this such a big deal? But it's something I always notice when I go back to early versions of Minecraft, because killing mobs is so much easier because they don't do this crazy running around dance. However, I think the way it works works right now is a little bit better because it makes you feel like, the cow actually cares about being killed, which, maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's something that makes you feel a bit weird, but I think it's good that the cow actually kind of has this feeling almost, because, again, it means that you're actually trying to kill the thing and you only do it if you really want to, and, it makes you feel a little bit more like a monster, which is a good thing because you're killing cute, innocent video game cows, and that is just a change they made that you might not have even known was a change. You might have thought it was always that way, but no, cows did not used to run away from you in attack. They used to just kind of stand there and accept their duty, which I think was, it was a nicer way to do it if you're just interested in the survival stuff, but I think it's, interesting thematically to have it that way, and that's at least why it's a big change. It's debatable, and that's always a good / cool thing. So the next big change they made to a Minecraft mob, number 5 here, we've entered the top 5 territory, is actually the ability to spawn chickens with eggs. So eggs have existed in Minecraft for quite some time now. Like, they're not a brand new feature to Minecraft. However, the ability to throw them at things and the ability for chickens to spawn out of them isn't something that has existed all of that time. So the reason I think this is such an influential change and such a big one in of itself is because it still is the only mob you can spawn yourself in survival. You have control over that by, 1 in 16 times when you throw an egg, you will get a chicken out of it. But it's also really cool because, this is kind of the genesis of spawn eggs. It's like a 1 in 16 chance of a spawn egg, and it's kind of interesting to me that this one little change to this one little mob kind of affected that big thing down the line, and it's a kind of important feature for most creative players, which I kind of like, so that's why it's the 5th biggest change. The ability to spawn chickens with eggs is such a small one on the surface that kind of evolved into so much more, such as the 4 chickens thing that everyone loves, or such as, the spawn eggs. Big change, and it's kind of influential. So the 4th biggest change they made to a mob in Minecraft is the ability to convert zombie villagers into regular villagers. That's right, zombie villagers existed for a bit before you could convert them, and they were kind of interesting that they did, exist, like a retexture on the mob, but the fact that you can turn them back is such a deep part of, like, the mythos of Minecraft, because they really are real villager people on the inside that, you can convert back to, and they'll have the same profession. The fact that they added that in there is such a deep part, because when you think about that process for a little bit, it's kind of like, ooh, yeah, that's kind of weird, but it's also a great way to get an achievement. It's just a cool way to make a village from scratch. That's right, they made a way to actually create villages, and they did it in a way that, like, really adds up and really kind of thematically makes sense. Like, these are villages that you're just converting back, and you feel good when you do it, at least I do, and that's why I think it's such a big change, and that's why it's number 4 here. Number 3 is perhaps a cooler use for the zombies, though, because it is the ability for the baby zombie to spawn on a chicken, or the baby zombie chicken jockey as it might be known. And the reason this is such a cool change to a mob is because they took a mob which was already pretty interesting and, wacky by itself. The baby zombie is, like, so annoying, but it's also so interesting in the way it exists, and then they gave it the ability to spawn on a chicken. They combined 2 mobs together, and they made this just massively fascinating thing. And you might think, why is fascinating such a big deal? But every single person I know that has heard about the baby zombie chicken jockey has just been blown away when they see the thing for real, because, again, chickens have existed for a very long time, zombies have existed for a very long time. Isn't it so bizarre that they just, combine these 2 mobs together and they make something that everyone wants to see? And then you look at the, the baby zombie pigman jockey too, and you see the exact same thing of, like, wow, yeah, seeing a zombie ride a chicken is something that just, it's internally fascinating, and I can't even describe it. I can't describe why it's so high on this list, but I can just say that some of you watching this video, not all of you, but some of you have looked at the baby zombie pigman jockey, gameplay you're seeing, and you're like, whoa, that is actually kind of bizarre. You're right, so I can, and now you know. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to the 2nd biggest change they've made to a mob, which, again, you might not even consider this a change to a mob. That's how big of a deal it is, because they added the skeleton horse, a variant of the horse. It is the same mob on the inside, but it is a variant, and the skeleton horse is such a big deal because there is now a chance when lightning strikes for a trap horse to happen. So you go to a horse, and then it spawns in 3 skeleton horses, which is like a boss fight built into the game. I once had of these spawn on the Pocket Edition when I had, like, no stuff, so it was just like, oh yeah, now there are 3 of these deadly guys that spawn at my house. Isn't that wonderful? But yeah, it's a boss fight built into the game that gives you an opportunity to get enchanted helmets, as well as get this super, super rare horse that shows that you did it. I think that's such an amazing addition to the game, and I still haven't encountered it in my survival world yet, so that's a bummer, but the fact that it exists, and at some point I might do, is really, really quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to that happening at some point. So, yeah, that is the 2nd biggest change to a mob, but what is the biggest one? I think it is again, this is one where you might not even consider it the same mob, but it is the same mob on the inside. That's why this is such a big change, because when the Nether was revamped for the 1.4 spooky scary update, they decided to change the skeleton so they could have a 2nd variant. That 2nd variant is the wither skeleton, and again, these mobs are so distinct from each other, you might not even, again, most people don't consider them to be the same mob. There is a skeleton and a wither skeleton, but as far as Minecraft is concerned, as far as even the spawn eggs are concerned, there is no wither skeleton spawn egg, because there are just 2 skeletons. There is the one that spawns in the overworld that is white, it's 2 blocks tall, and it has a bow, and there is the one that spawns in the Nether. It's 3 blocks tall. They made the mob a different height, a different size, they made it a different color, and then they gave it a different weapon, the stone sword. I have no idea how you can, why the game decided decides to call these the same mob, but the fact that this is the same mob makes it by far the biggest change, because imagine they did that with any other mob tomorrow. Oh yeah, by the way, we've got this new black llama that only spawns in the end, and by the way, it's evil, and when you kill it, you get this magic thing that allows you to fight a brand new boss. You'd be like, no, that's not a llama, that's the evil black end llama. But yeah, that is something they did with the Willow Skeleton, and that's why it's the biggest change they've ever made to a mob in Minecraft. That does bring us to the end of today's video, but I hope you did all enjoy it. Like the video if you do, because it helps out the channel a lot, and let us know you do like these sorts of things. Share it if you really liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here, because I make videos like this one every single day on my channel, and if subscribed, you'll see them daily on your homepage. Let me know in the comments down below what you think the biggest change was, if it wasn't any of these, or if you agree that the skeleton and the Wither Skeleton really should be considered separate mobs, and the fact that they're not makes it the biggest change. I'd love to hear about that and anything else in the comments down below, but for now, I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.